Yeah, they're never going to change. They're never going to say sorry for the terrible things they said to my parents. Sometimes I wish I can get my own back.
I could take care of them if you like.
We've just heard an extract from the Me, Myself and I TV show. And joining us today is the creator, Tom Ellis.
Hi. I've also brought with me two members of the cast, Nicole, who plays Scarlett, and Chloe, who plays Rachel.
So, what is the story about?
The story is about a teenager called Rachel. Rachel suffers with an illness called ME, and the film deals with how she copes with not only her debilitating symptoms, but also the isolation that the illness brings.
And who is Scarlett?
Scarlett is Rachel's favourite TV star. It's funny because she was actually created for a different show about 5 years ago. I made a web series called Scarlett, funnily enough. But in that show, she was an imaginary version of the character that our lead character, Ben, saw, and she sort of gave him advice about dating and how to, teenage life. So when I came to write Emmy, Myself and I thought she was a handy tool to have, because what essentially she is she's a way of the audience hearing what the internal thoughts are of our lead character. So she kind of really she's the internal thinkings of Rachel in Emmy, Myself and I.
And can you tell us more about Rachel?
Rachel is someone that really smiles and laughs through her pain. That's how she deals with it. It's kind of her mask. But she's been through quite a lot. She's only about 18, so she's been through quite a lot already. She struggled to get a diagnosis for illness. She was doubted by family members. She had to leave school as well because of it, because of the illness. And when you leave school, you tend to lose all your friends then as well. So she's become really isolated. But she like I said, she laughs and she jokes and she kind of makes fun of it. But she has been dealing with extreme pain for years. But she's a bit of a tough cookie. She just kind of carries on, and that's hopefully something that people will see within that character.
When you got involved, Nicole, obviously the character was like loosely based on kind of a Buffy the Vampire type Slayer.
Yeah.
Like, what was your input for that kind of inspiration for the character?
So, obviously, I didn't have any input in creating the character. When he told me his thoughts about what he was like thinking about modeling Scarlett after, it made sense to me because she's kind of the strong alter ego in his head and superhero-ish persona. So, like, badass, that kind of persona, a kick-ass person, someone that takes no crap, what you want to say to people, but sometimes you can't. That's Scarlett. So I actually thought it was pretty accurate and thought, yeah, that sounds good to me. Let's do this.
Chloe, when you first handed the script and you read through it, what were your opinions on the script? Did you think it was good or?
Yeah, I really liked it. I didn't really think I'd be able to remember it all, but I remember most of it. Just kind of need to glance at it before I go, and then I remember, kind of.
Okay. And Nicole, what did you think of the script when you first read through it?
I thought it was very interesting and well written. It was actually a story. When I picked it up, it was actually a story that I wanted to keep on reading. So if you were like, say, looking for a novel, say for example, a page turner, I guess the term would be coined. So yeah, I thought it was very well written, very interesting, and I'm eager to actually see what comes next with it. So yeah, the next chapter, so to speak.
What inspired you to write the story, Tom?
So the story is partly fictional and then partly based on real life events. So it's based on my life. Obviously, the fictional elements are I was never a teenage girl. Obviously, that's part of the fictional, and partly why I did that, because sufferers with ME are more commonly female, but also it helped me kind of put a bit of distance between myself, because obviously I'm talking and writing about events that happened to me which are quite not always the best of memories, I think I describe them as. So she's kind of largely sort of has some of my traits within it, but then I've tried to make her own sort of her own being. But yeah, so I've had Emmy since I was 11, so 17 years now, if I'm doing my maths right. So I had a really long time, so I had it through the same age that the character is dealing with it right now, which the teenage years are really, really tricky with it, which is why I kind of picked the story being set in the teenage years, because you're kind of dealing with the usual teenage things that happen, like in terms of like finding yourself and hormones and all that kind of thing. But yeah, you've got some really, really debilitating symptoms from this illness. So that was an important reason why I set her as a teenager, because it's kind of a coming of age story, but in a very unique setting, whereby our lead character barely leaves her bedroom because she's sick all the time, and she's kind of finding herself and finding how to carry on with her life, even though the illness is never going to go away, and she's always going to have to be balancing it. So she kind of has to find that within her story.
So this isn't the first time you've written a script, Tom. So what made you start this idea?
So yeah, it's not the first time I've written things before. Like I said, I wrote Scarlet, and I wrote a comic book that was about an assassin, so nothing to do with my personal life or anything that I've gone through. It's completely fictional, because believe it or not, I've never been an assassin. Keep it on the down low though. So, but yeah, and then the timing just seemed right in that I don't really talk about it often, or I didn't for the 16 years prior. But people kept on asking me over the years why didn't I write something about it, and I just kept on thinking, well, there's no need, or it's too hard. And then kind of that naiveness of, well, maybe it's not needed because maybe the doctors are better, and maybe people aren't struggling as much now with it, and maybe awareness is better for the illness. But I went and did some research just to kind of almost confirm that there's no need for me to write it. And what I discovered was that we are no further along with awareness or medical treatment for it than we were in 2001, which is a scary old thing that in that time, the same things that happened to me are happening to the next generation of people, and now the next generation after that as well. So when you see things like that, you can't help but look at it and think, what can I do? And the simple answer of what I could do is write something about it.
And are you aiming it to people who may be going through this in their teenage years then?
I think it'd be really helpful. I mean, we've had some really lovely interactions so far with people who've connected with just even like the basic plot when they've seen it on the poster, and they're teenagers, so it seems to maybe resonate the idea to do something with them. But at the same time, it's not like a straight drama. There's some comedy in it, so it could be enjoyed by anyone, and hopefully kind of like it'll educate people on the illness and what the symptoms are, as well as entertaining them as well, in that it being a good kind of sitcom.
What are the main symptoms that first occur, Tom?
That's a long old list. So people have different symptoms with it, which kind of makes it why it's so hard to diagnose. But some of the ones that I have a constant migraine that fluctuates as I get more tired or less tired, and tiredness, my fatigue that I have with it can come from emotional stress or physical exertion. So the more stuff you do, and particularly when you're a teenager, you tend to find that if you try and do something fun, you're punished for weeks after by your body letting you down, and that you can't leave bed, and your muscles start to lock up, and your headache gets worse, and you can't stomach food, and at the same time you also can't sleep, and the light seems too bright, and the noise seems too loud. So that's kind of one of the elements of why people do find themselves staying indoors. Some people have, there's different levels to the illness. So there's kind of a chart with it's a barometer where people are at. So some people are bed-bound, their muscles don't work in their legs, so they're wheelchair-bound. It's a real kind of it's kind of an interesting illness from a kind of a medical standpoint, just in terms of there's so many random symptoms that different people get, and no one person gets the exact same symptoms. So it's kind of a quirky little illness as well. But yeah, that's kind of some of the reasons why people end up being isolated, because they don't want to be sick for weeks, and it's kind of one of the hardest barriers to overcome. That deciding what things are worth making yourself sick for is going and hanging out with your friends and going to the cinema. Is it worth being sick for 2 weeks after?
You could have written it as a sort of semi-autobiography, but you've chosen to dramatise it. Why did you do that?
Couple of reasons. Just in terms of, I've never really wanted to write something about it, because it's very kind of, it seems kind of a bit kind of personal, so it kind of puts a bit of distance and separation from me and the character. It's a character that's going through this, rather than, oh, that's what Tom went through and everyone knows everything that happened. And then there's also, it hides some people. So say, for example, in the film, there's an uncle that's said some not very nice things to it about the character. It'd be really on the nose if it's coming from me, because it's sort of semi-based on real experiences, but it just would be maybe a little bit too on the nose, whereas if it's this character's uncle, it feels kind of less kind of scathing at my own family. So that's kind of it. And then also it allows for a bit of fun as well, with the fact that she's got a poster that talks to her.
Who are your favourite writers, Tom?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. So, when I was a teenager, Joss Whedon really inspired me. So Joss Whedon wrote Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, and he did the Avengers film. He's gone on to have a really good career. But when he did Buffy, it was a show about teenagers that were different, that kind of could be isolated, and they were a group of not the usual teenagers, and I felt not the usual teenager as well. And Buffy as a character sort of resonated, because it felt like she was coping with something that was out of her control. She was chosen to kill vampires, and even though that's completely different than what I was going through, it sort of felt like our parallels, in that it felt like I was going through something that I had no control over either, and I just had to experience. So that show and his writing really helped and kind of inspired me to want to do writing. And then after that, I really like John Fawcett and Graham Manson, who created Orphan Black. So I really love that show, because I think that's, if anyone doesn't know, it's a show about human cloning, and we have one actress plays like 17 the parts, and you completely forget that it's the same person. Like you just believe that it's like 17 different actors when it's just her. But also it's kind of, again, I guess I'm drawn to shows that are about identity and being different, and but also, whilst dramatic, kind of have a funny element in it, because I guess that's kind of vaguely my personality, in that I'm constantly taking the mick out of people and myself, and if someone says something wrong, I'm probably the person that's going to pull them up and take the mick.
Are you starting with character, or do you start with a plot or a framework? What's your method of writing?
That's a good question. I guess obviously I started with the topic and thought, what's the best way to tell it? I wrote probably about 6 or 7 different sort of spec scripts of this is a way I could tell it, or maybe I could do it as a documentary, or all sorts of things like that. And then one day I just kind of, I don't know why, I was driving, and I just remembered a conversation that we had with my boss Steve Swindon at Tape, and about 6 years prior we were talking about why Scarlett is a great catalyst for teenage stories, in that she's a Hollywood character, and everyone watches films as a teenager, so you kind of, everyone sort of vaguely has an actress or an actor that they really like. And then also she's a way of hearing what the internal struggles of teenagers going through, but in a way that doesn't feel kind of, oh, here's a voiceover, or here's them writing in a diary. It's kind of, it's a character stepping out of a poster and talking to them, or so we always talked about what different stories we could tell as a teenager, just using her as a catalyst for what people are going through. So I remembered that conversation. I'd forgot about it for about 6 years, and then I realised, oh well, this is a teenage story, and this is a teenager going through something. That's what we talked about 6 years ago. Well, I'll just sort of lift it from one to the other, and that's kind of where that came from.
So, Chloe, where did you first hear about the project?
It was actually on another project with TAPE, support housing, and like towards the end of it, Tom told me about it.
And I found out through about the project through my friend Tom, who obviously has Emmy and has approached me asking me if I was interested in working on this project, and I really wanted to because I care about him and I think he's incredible, so I wanted to be part of it.
How did you feel about getting the role of Rachel then, Chloe?
I was like quite shocked, to be honest, because obviously Tom's done like loads of projects. He's met loads of people who act and stuff in their projects. So I was a bit like confused of why he'd asked me, because I never really get asked to do roles and stuff.
And Scarlett, your costume plays a part in this film, apparently.
Yes.
What's the significance of the costume?
Well, Scarlett's a superhero kind of, has a superhero kind of persona, and my costume is that of someone that would be ready for a good fight. Basically, I don't want to give too much away, but I'm up for it. I'm up for it.
So the visual clues will be there and pretty obvious
Yeah.
to everybody who sees it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll translate well.
Superheroes are very popular at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Part of everybody's
Yeah.
viewing habits, I think.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Can you tell us what the message of the film is?
To like get awareness out about Emmy and like make more people aware of it in like general, because it's not very known at the moment.
And why is that important?
Just kind of make more people aware of it so a cure can be found.
Yeah, basically, it's the objective is to make society realize that Emmy is real. It afflicts people every day, and it has real consequences if it's not checked. People suffer in silence and are very misunderstood. Often, considered lazy or just don't have any motivation, or all kinds of slights against them. If people watching this movie or these episodes get anything from this, they'll get that it is real, and perhaps may even find significance within themselves, maybe see it in someone else, or maybe in their lifetime meet someone that says, hey, I have this, and rather than kind of in their head going, whatever, it's not real, they'll go, oh, actually, this is real, and give them due consideration, support, help. When something like this is left unchecked, not unlike other conditions that have been out there previous, like even ADHD, before it was a well-known thing. The suicide rate is quite high, but if people are aware of it, understand it, and are considerate to it, then they might be able to step in and help someone that say has ME, which I know from not personal experience, but a friend's personal experience, often didn't happen, and it's heart-wrenching. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. So I hope that's what people get from this anyways, is a deeper understanding of something that is really, really afflicting a lot of people.
The idea is to present this as like an episodic thing. What do you think the benefits are of telling this kind of story in this long form format?
Well, I think if it's done in an episodic type of format, then perhaps as the characters grow through the episodes, people's knowledge of the issue at hand can grow. it perhaps is a vehicle to attract more people as well, because the story, it's growing. You know, it's not just nothing's finale. It's still growing. So I think, you know, that's why people watch sitcoms, isn't it? Because they get to get a bit more of the journey of these characters that you grow to love. So yeah, I think it's a good vehicle.
Yeah, we really like episodic as well. It's like, because it's like very short, people will take it in more, because it's not like one massive long piece that people have got to take in all at once. It's like bit by bit, they take it in.
You mentioned the organisation TAPE in Old Colwyn. Can you tell us something about them?
Sure. So, TAPE Community Music and Film is an arts charity based out of Old Colwyn, as you said. It offers creative opportunities for everyone. One of the things that we do is we provide workshops and projects and various opportunities for people to explore new ideas, develop skills, gain training, and even find employment. With a full timetable of safe, supported, inclusive activities for everyone, whether you are looking to try something new, pick up an old interest, develop an idea, or just meet people with the same interests.
So if anybody listening to this now needs to find a bit more about it, they can get in touch with who then?
So you can find more information about TAPE on our website, tapemusicandfilm.co.uk, with a Facebook page and Twitter. And on our website, there's a section for contacting us. So you can send us an email with what your interests are, and we'll see if there's something that you can come and get involved with.
Okay, so thanks Tom again for joining us, and for the viewers, we will make sure that all the links that are described are in the description for you to view, and thanks again.